away.
All right, our next guest, Billy Boughey, the author of Culture Reconstructed and founder and CEO of Elevate Experiences. Welcome to the show, Billy.
Excited to be here. How you guys feeling?
Feeling good. It's Friday.
I like it.
We have to reconstruct the culture, evidently.
Got to build it back up. Come on.
Yeah, so tell us about the book.
So really this idea that a culture, when you break it down to its various elements, if you can work on those individually, then it becomes even better than what you hoped it would be. I have an 8-year-old boy, and I love Lincoln Logs. We play with those together, and when you play with Lincoln Logs or Legos, you have to take all the pieces apart and really evaluate them and then build something meaningful afterwards. So that's where the book started, and it's been a lot of fun to put together.
So tell us about Elevate Experiences.
So we believe there is a plague of boring events in the world.
You don't say.
Oh, God.
Most events you go to, people don't connect, the keynote speaker's boring, the video didn't
They
connect.
basically have to poison you with alcohol to entertain you.
Pretty much. And
Yes.
so really created this. I played baseball at Auburn University and played for the Philadelphia Phillies. So professional sports background. I'm a freestyle rapper as well, play guitar and sing. So
Anything else? I have no talent.
well, and it's interesting. I'm not really great at any of those, but it was just as I went, I realized there was the arts, and then there was connection, then there was business, and I loved all of those. And I realized that most MCs at events, people that created event experiences, didn't really think about the end user. They thought about what they were going to say versus how it was going to come across. Yeah. And so over my career, when I would turn the microphone off and put it in my back pocket at our big events that we host, I would have the president or the HR director come up and say, man, this is great, this event's awesome, but after we finish this, I've got to go back to this culture we're in. And I thought there was something wrong with that. They'd put on this big pomp and circumstance, big event, but then this culture connection was, the reason people did events was to build their culture. And so the book really answers the question, beyond just the big flash in the pan event that you have, how do you actually create something of value beyond that?
Yeah, see, that is a systemic problem. It didn't happen overnight. Mm-hmm. And people say there is a reason that boring culture has been around. Mm-hmm. Whether it was for efficiency, whether it was for laziness, or whatever the reason was, by accident. I don't know.
1950s haunting us.
How do you just convince people? Because there are a lot of ideas, and we hear on this show and many other shows, is, okay, it's a good idea, but who's got time for it?
Yeah, really defining what you want it to be is the first part. You got to define what you're looking for. And if someone thinks your culture is boring, but it's defined and you're doing it the right way, they're not a part of your business. They shouldn't be a part of your company. So let's just start there. Not any business gets it perfect. I've worked with a lot of great, massive organizations, and the ones that are the best define who they are and they stick to it, and it draws the right people to that, right? And so we really got to figure out how we define it. And then you've got to figure out, what do I need to make this culture awesome compared to that definition? Most folks trying a bunch of different things. I say define it and then develop it and really put a system in place where you can execute on that.
Yeah, but here's the problem. In Silicon Valley, they define themselves by a different culture, but that culture changes. They change their minds like I change my socks.
Yeah.
Right, and so define culture. How would you guys define culture?
I can't even define it.
It's tricky.
Yeah, it's tricky.
It's hard to define, but you know what it is when you see it.
Come on, that's what I'm talking about. So it's just like joy.
Yeah.
It's just like a really good interview. It's just like a connection point. You can feel it, but it's tough to put your finger on. This book is my attempt to put a finger on what that is. It's what you see, it's what you feel, and what you do.
It's more, would you agree, Julie? It's mostly how you feel when you're interacting with other people within an organization.
Of course.
Yeah.
My question to you then is this. We all say culture is important, and I'm not saying it's not, but for a lot of companies and organizations, it really isn't. Mm-hmm. Because if they say it is, for some people, like I think if the companies or organizations' most important asset, if you would, what have you, is people, then yes, that is so important, because how you feel.
Culture too.
No, but if this company is making $1 billion because of a patent, who cares? Really? If I were the founder, that would not be my priority. Shifting the culture would not be my priority. Is there any way you can convince these people to, reconstruct the culture?
So the idea, and you've heard this before, that culture starts at the head. So whoever the president or the founder,
leadership,
if that person isn't on board, it's really tricky to change much. But I really challenge people to think about a trickle up culture versus a trickle down culture. The next generation, which is why this book is written for this decade, is to figure out how I can own the culture of my space, become who I want to be, and then impact there. And so I like to really challenge the social norm of folks that think that maybe making a lot of money is success. And if that is, be really clear about it, because if you are and someone doesn't like it, they can leave.
So I come from a family of entrepreneurs who never really had the corporate culture discussion with me, and it's been kind of shocking to enter corporate America without that. My parents are doctors, you know, they have their own businesses. Why is it more advantageous at some points to be an entrepreneur and create your own culture than working for someone else?
100%. And so every business started with a person with a idea. Would you say that's safe to say?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it starts there with that person. Corporate America is just one person that's multiplied times a lot, and the culture got watered down. Some of the biggest brands in the world I work with, I just say, if we could clear the table and start over, what would you do? I literally take a giant bin of Lincoln Logs and I pour them on the table with the leadership team and say, let's build together. How have you built this business? Haphazardly with a bunch of different pieces, or have you thoughtfully separated them
Haphazard.
out? You know, so most entrepreneurs, so I'm an entrepreneur myself, the company we built, Elevate, I really had to get strategic with building it and then being honest enough with myself to say, this ain't working. We need to break this thing down and build it back up. And I think folks are really afraid to spend time breaking down to build back up.
But it's hard because a lot of companies and a lot of even our own personal lives, a lot of our lives are reactive, right?
Yeah.
X happened,
Busy.
so we did Y, and then Y is now no longer valid, so we do Z, and we even forget why we did something 2 years ago that really created our modern day
All the
reality.
time.
And a phrase I use a lot is people grow into the conversations you create around them. And so when something's broken, it just needs a better conversation. My definition of a leader is someone who can start a better conversation. I like to break things down. So I'm someone who takes these really far off concepts and brings it into 2020. That's my goal with people. Let's not talk about leadership and what is it and this big career path. It's just the ability to start a better conversation. If you need to speak up about something, how are you giving your people permission to do that? I say businesses should be measured in two ways. Are your team members smiling, and are your customers raving? And let's look at your happiness quotient on both of those and see where you might have great happy customers, but your team members are falling off like crazy. Let's
Yeah,
ask the
I
question
think
why.
I'm thinking of a very large company when you're talking
Yeah.
about that.
Think
But
of
yeah.
a few. Yeah.
Well, where can we get the book, Billy?
Books on Amazon. It actually releases this coming Tuesday. And so we're on pre-release right now. I've got a podcast called Created for Experience where I examine people's various experiences in life and how it impacts their future. So you can go to either one of those places to kind of hear more about the book.
And your 8-year-old future entrepreneur?
For sure. We got lemonade stands rocking right now. We're buying blow pops at a discount, selling them for more. So we're learning the ways.
Thank you for joining us, Billy.
Yeah, pleasure.